everybody. Hope you had a wonderful weekend. I'm Jeremy Cordeaux. Peter Clayton's behind the camera. Without fear or favour, the court of public opinion. I hope it's going to become a favourite spot on the Facebook pages that you look at, and as a podcast and live streaming 3 hours on Friday morning from 9 o'clock from the dining room table, believe it or not. We had a bit of trouble last Friday. I think we were about half an hour into the show, and I heard these clicks and clacks in my headphones. And I went on, I said, as long as it's only in my headphones and not on the air, I don't mind, I can live with this, but I wouldn't want you to live with it. Anyway, Tony decided that the best thing to do is to stop the broadcast, which you can't always do midstream. Stop the broadcast and find out what the problem was, which was basically that the computer needed to be rebooted. This is the computer that runs the little mixing panel that we have. But I'm still in awe of the fact that everything on that table, pardon me, which is about 18 inches by 18 inches, is entirely what you'd need for a old-fashioned or conventional radio station. Miniaturization I have heard of, but this is ridiculous. No, so I don't present the bugs, the hiccups. I expect them. I really do. Peter gave me something interesting just before we came to air, because very importantly, when I finished having my chat, I want to throw to an email that was sent to me. It's a packaged news story. Harry Joyner sent it to me from Melbourne, and it is amazing. If you are thinking of buying an electric car, it will certainly give you some background information that you would not get from the dealer. This is a story about how the Japanese, well, not so much the Japanese, but the Chinese in particular, are salting the mine. What they're doing basically is to pretend that electric cars are a lot more popular than they really are. And what they are doing is to make all these electric cars, tens of thousands of them. They register them, and then they take them out and put them in a field, simply to give the world the impression that the electric vehicle is the next big thing. Have a look at it. I'd like your feedback. I'd like you to tell me what you think. But what Pete said to me before we sat down to do the show today was a Norwegian ferry boat company has refused to take electric cars. Pete, what was it? Electric cars, hybrid cars, and hydrogen cars. They won't transport them. Now, these are a very big, because Norway is a fine seafaring nation. Their maritime fleet is unbelievably big. They probably ship more stuff around the world than anybody else. But they don't want to ship electric cars. I guess that's because of the problems, the fire. You wouldn't want that at sea with decks and decks and decks of electric vehicles. But anyway, be that as it may. Have a look at this at the end of the show today. Interesting. We got the statistics on the weekend, by the way. Black African street gangs are continuing to run rampant on Adelaide streets, as they have in Melbourne. Police have seized guns and knives and swords and machetes. This is Adelaide. The African community says, quite rightly, don't judge us by them. Fine, right. But I say to you, take control, because they are tarnishing your responsibility, these kids, your reputation. Take charge and responsibility. You know who these kids are. You must. Turn them in. Parents must know. Neighbours must know. Mates must know. Turn them in, and then we should deport them. I don't know what we do if they are in fact Australian-born, Australian citizens, but we'll take that one step at a time, I suspect. But taking all this into account, no wonder the police are in overdrive to recruit more officers. Looks like they need 500 new recruits. God help them. What terrible, terrible job they have to do. I find myself this morning in unusual agreement with Penny Wong when she addressed the United Nations. And don't get me wrong, I like Penny Wong. I think she's a very capable woman, very intelligent woman, very articulate, good on her feet. When she addressed the United Nations asking that the Russians not be allowed to have this right of veto, it's a no-brainer. The whole United Nations thing, of course, is just a sham, but anyway, China and Russia are part of the 5 permanent members of the Security Council with this right of veto, which makes the whole United Nations impotent and ridiculous. Go for it, Penny, do something. Don't know what you can do. Could somebody, by the way, please tell the ABC that it isn't Gari, it's Fraser Island? Fraser Island, please? When was that name changed officially? I think you'll find it wasn't. When is somebody going to stop the ABC from this, I don't know what you'd call it, ethnic cleansing or something? Getting rid of the English and substituting the Aboriginal. Good God. Latest poll is quite compelling on the referendum. It is shaping up to be a monumental waste of money. But I knew that, and I suspect you may have known that yourself all the time. It's not Anthony Albanese's money, so I guess he couldn't care less. In a sense, I suppose, if you want to be dispassionate about it, if this thing was to get up, this voice, it would cost a lot more. Probably the whole country. Because if you read the Uluru statement in full, or just the 26 pages, you'll see what they want. And they're not hiding it. And they're not denying it. And I have no confusion as to why the yes vote is losing favour. Hey, you guys, we are not stupid. We are not. Oh, thank you, Les. He sent me this before about the voice. In fact, the many voices. Let me read it to you, if you haven't heard. 3,278 separate Aboriginal corporations. 3,278. I've been saying 1,000. Les has done more research. Thank you, Les. 243 native title bodies, 48 land councils, 35 regional councils, 122 Aboriginal agencies and advisory boards. Advisory boards? 145 health organisations, 11 indigenous federal members of parliament. And I don't know about the legal aid area. I must investigate that tomorrow, but I think that would be tens of thousands of people Australia-wide. Anyway, 11 indigenous members of federal parliament. Taxpayers paying $40 billion annually for approximately 3.4% of the population to have a better life. But of course they never see the money, which is the real scandal. Expenditure per person, Les tells me, is $43,449 annually on every Indigenous man, woman and child. $43,449. This is compared to $20,900 on other Australians. Is that prejudicial? Australian taxpayers spend at least $100 million per day on direct support for Indigenous Australians, which equates to, as I said, not exactly 40 billion, 39 billion 500 million dollars of direct government expenditure, not including mining royalties, and I've got no way of calculating or giving you a figure on those. The Voice is nothing more than a one-way ticket to national poverty for this country. If the 3,984 government-funded bodies that represent the special needs of Aboriginal people don't provide a voice, well, nothing will. And we, ladies and gentlemen, we should demand our money back. It couldn't be that they have been totally useless all these years, but then again, no one has asked them to account for the money. So what is Labor up to with this? What is really behind this Indigenous voice? A very good question, Les. I'd almost be scared of looking for the answer. And just before we do some dates and then throw to this incredible Chinese story about electric cars, I'll just tell you, you probably know, but Jim Chalmers will tomorrow release an employment white paper. 9 new policies, I think 70 recommendations, employment or a national industries passport. They'll spend about $9 million on that. $9 million on a sort of a passport of what you've done in your life. I have a biography. Most people have a biography of where they've been, a simple where they've been, what they've done, qualifications, etc. That's what this passport is about. Wouldn't cost the taxpayer $9 million to do that. We'll talk more about it later in the week after I get a chance to have a look at it. Maybe we'll do that Wednesday.
Yeah, Jerry, can we slip in the John Howard thing?
You want to put the John Howard thing in here?
Before you do your dates, yeah, just slip it in here.
Okay, well, let's do that. Okay, Pete wants to put this in from John Howard. I don't know where Pete found it, but I've seen it. Yeah. No, it's very good. We can fit that in with the Chinese fields of electric cars.
It's only short.
Okay, here's my favourite Prime Minister, Mr. John Howard.
Love him or hate him, John Howard just made one of the best cases against the Voice to Parliament.
Often thought of a speech I heard Bob Hawke make in 1988 when he said the only thing that defined you as an Australian was your commitment to Australia.
The commitment to Australia is the one thing needful to be a true Australian.
No matter where you came from, whether you were Anglo-Celtic, you were Italian, Greek, Christian, Jewish, atheist, didn't matter. You were defined by your commitment to Australia, and that's how it should be. Yet this proposal defies that, defies the declaration of the person I regard as the most successful Labor Prime Minister that Australia's had.
In Australia, there is no hierarchy of descent. There must be no privilege of origin.
Yeah, he's quite a man. Really, quite a man. Some birthdays, ladies and gentlemen. September 25. Henry Ford, speaking of cars. Henry Ford announces an 8-hour, 5-day working week for the workers at the Ford Motor Company. That was back in 1926. Wow. British physician Dr. Charles Drysdale warns against the use of tobacco. On this day in 1978, it was a letter to the Times newspaper in one of the earliest public health announcements on the dangers of smoking. And now we've got these silly idiots running around promoting the business of vaping. Nonsense. Lungs are for air, not smoke or mist or anything else. 2005, the lovely Don Adams, American comedian and Emmy Award-winning actor, Get Smart, Tennessee Tuxedo. He dies of complications from lymphoma. He was 82. I didn't think he was as old as that. 82, 2005. Michael Douglas, he was born 1944. Coma, Wall Street, Jewel of the Nile. He married Catherine Zeta-Jones, Welsh actress. She was in Chicago. The Legend of Zorro. Born in Wales. Both born on the same day. Different years. Michael in 1944 and Catherine in 1969 on this day. Happy birthday to you both. Frontiersman and gunfighter Wild Bill Hickok supposedly marries Calamity Jane. According to the latter's daughter, somewhat disputed, 1873, poor girl, Calamity Jane. Can you imagine the poor kid getting born, Pete, and, you know, Dad says, let's call her Calamity. Dear, oh dear, oh dear. I think we've probably come from those days, don't we, Pete? I mean, maybe we come from the Old West.
I believe we do.
I believe we do. I believe we do. Ronnie Barker, oh, I loved him. He was a great guy. Every time he came on my program, and he did often, he was a great guest. English comedian, the two Ronnies, Porridge. He was born in Bedford, England. He died in 2005, 1929 he was born. Walter Pidgeon, Canadian actor. Mrs. Miniver. Madame Curie dies of a stroke at 87 in 1984. Barbara Walters, the American broadcast journalist and first female nightly news anchor, was born in Boston in Massachusetts, died in 2022, but born in 1929. Remarkable lady, Barbara Walters. 1960, Emily Post, American Authority on Social Behaviour and Etiquette. Emily, where are you now that we need you? Emily Post. She dies at 86 on this day in 1960. Mark Hamill, 1951, was born in Oakland, California. Oh, comedian Chevy Chase calls Cary Grant a homo on the Today Show. Cary Grant? Oh, Chevy, what jealousy. That was in 1980. The defamation suit, $10 million defamation suit pursued from Cary Grant, settled out of court for an undisclosed sum. Well, I'll bet he did. I think Cary Grant was the personification of an elegant male, if you ask me. But no one does, of course. 1764, Fletcher Christian, the English sailor who led the mutiny on the Bounty, he was born in Cumberland in England, 1764. Christopher Reeve, American actor, Superman, somewhere in time, born New York City, died 2004 in sad circumstances, but born this day in 52. And Roman Holidays, starring Audrey Hepburn, 25, marries Mel Ferrer in 1954. I'll leave it there and throw to this, which I think is quite illuminating, about how the Chinese manipulate the popularity of the electric car. Thanks so much. Pete and I'll be back tomorrow. Believe in yourself. I'm Jeremy Cordeaux. Bye from the Court of Public Opinion.
满场地的新能源，1万台车。
This is a field of over 10,000 Neta V Chinese EV cars that are rotting away.
600多台啊，21年的，都是50公里以内啊，上牌新车。
And this man has just exclaimed that these BYD cars, all 2021 models, have less than 31 miles on them. Just like that field of 10,000 cars, they all have license plates on them, they're all fully registered, and they've been put away to rot. Yes, all of these cars have been left to rot. Why on earth is China throwing away entire fields of electric cars? By now, we've all heard that China's EV sales are outpacing the rest of the world. You'll see the headlines that say, China is now the leader in EV sales, and Tesla's got to watch out, and all this other nonsense. Well, guess what? It's true, the numbers are true, but what you're not taking into consideration is that China is the land of shortcuts and facades, and all of these cars that you're seeing in this field, well, they're counted in those numbers. Let me explain to you what's going on. Should be around... Yes, I love my extra wallet.
This is really nice. I never expected this. And so I can chuck that big wallet of mine now. This is fantastic. Thank you.
So my dad really likes his extra wallet that I got him for Father's Day. Because, well, right now Exeter's having a fantastic Father's Day sale, which I hope you'll check out yourself. But you're probably wondering why my wallet was in a field. So falling off is just part of dirt bike riding. We all know it. You're riding in a field, in the woods, a hidden log, a hole in the ground. Something surprises you and all of a sudden you're staring at the sky. Well, luckily, dirt bikes are built tough. They're designed to fall and take a beating over and over again and still keep going. Just like extra wallets. And man, oh man, do I put my wallet through a lot. I'm constantly wrenching on cars, I ride bikes, I travel all over the place, and it's so good to know that I can have a reliable wallet that's going to be by my side. Extra wallets don't only just look good, they're sleek, tough, and are packed with technology like an RFID blocker, so people can't scan the chip on your card. Now is the best time to grab an extra wallet. They have a fantastic Father's Day sale and lots of Father's Day bundles over on their website. Go to shop.extra.com/SerpentZA and use the code SerpentZA at checkout to get a further discount. You will not be disappointed. Seriously, up to 40% off and you'll love it. Anyway, back to the show. You see the Neta Vs and the BYDs and the bigger brands that you see huge amounts of them just parked out to rot. Well, you see, that's because they need the numbers. In order to get subsidies from the government, in order to put out the sales figures that they've sold more than Tesla and that they're leading in EV production and EV sales, they need to have these fake sales. So BYD themselves will register them and put them on the market and then claim that they've been sold. And then, of course, they've got all those excess cars and they just stick them in a field and...
You can make history tomorrow.
But there's a bigger problem. There are even more car graveyards. And that has to do with this stupid investment scheme. Let me explain. In China, very often you get these fly-by-night investment schemes. Someone comes up with a good idea like bicycle sharing, for instance. And guess what? People jump on the bandwagon. They raise a bunch of investment capital. They start a company. We saw it go absolutely crazy with the shared bicycle schemes. We covered this on the China show where we showed these mountains of bicycles that had been discarded because the companies knew that if they pumped these bikes out, they'd keep getting investment. So they just kept pumping them out, even when it wasn't financially viable, because like a Ponzi scheme, you just keep getting your investment money in, and all of these bike companies pretty much shut down except for two. And a lot of the people that started these bike companies ran away with the investment money, never to be seen again. The bicycle sharing schemes kind of came to an end in late 2018. And then suddenly, and because the bicycle sharing investment scheme had now disappeared, people stepped in with a new investment scheme for shared vehicles. And this time it was for electric cars. Now, there's this fantastic video, which I'm going to link below in the description. You can see it in the background here. But there's a documentary filmmaker who went and took drone footage of the shared bikes. And he made this video called No Place to Place. in 2018, where he showed all of these massive mountains of the shared bike failures. But he then went in 2019 to film the fields of abandoned electric vehicles. So this is no place to place too. And what you're seeing are these fields of shared cars. You see, the idea, like shared bicycles, would be that you have an app. And if you need a car, you can look in your app and see, oh, there's a shared car nearby, a shared electric vehicle. And you go and you unlock it with your app and you can drive to your destination and then lock it again. It's actually a very nice idea. It's not a bad idea at all. But of course, because it's all a money grab and it's a ridiculous scheme and a Ponzi scheme type situation in China, they just pump these things out without doing proper market research, without actually seeing if it was viable or not. And so the end result is fields and fields of thousands of hundreds of thousands of abandoned vehicles that are now going to rot. Now, this is where it gets insidious. These cars are electric vehicles. And that means they have batteries in them. So not only have you created a lot of waste by developing cars that are not going to be used and that are going to be left to rot, I mean steel and glass and liquids and chemicals and all the rest that goes into it, but the batteries. Everybody knows that these electric batteries that are used in electric vehicles are incredibly complicated and require a lot of very dangerous mining and chemical processes to create. There are human rights atrocities attached to making these batteries, if you want to look into it, child labor, slave labor, that kind of thing. But the detriment to the earth in mining all of these chemicals and all of the materials needed to create these electric vehicle batteries is just insane. So now you've created all of this environmental damage to make these cars, and then you just let them rot in a field. And of course, now they're going to create even more environmental damage because they're going to sit there for however long with all of these chemicals and batteries in them and all the rest of it. And they're going to pollute the environment further. So it's like a double whammy. Not only have you damaged the environment making them, but now you're damaging the environment by discarding them. And this is where China tricks everyone. You see, you hear about their great green initiatives, this being one of them. Oh, look, China's really pushing forward in renewable energy and electric cars. And if you just read headlines and you look at the numbers, etc., you would think China's doing a very good job. But what you're not seeing is the fact that China is actually destroying the earth at a rate never before seen. So you have to look past the facade, and people still don't seem to get this. China is an opaque country. They block all of this information from the rest of the world. You would not be able to just see this. If a company does something like this in the West, you bet your bottom dollar there's going to be a lot of eyes on it. A lot of big news outlets will cover this. There will be, heads will roll. People will have to reply to this. The companies would have to pay some kind of a fine for damaging the environment or for doing bad things like this, like an oil spill or something like that. We know that there are ways to deal with these things, but because we don't see these things in China, nothing gets done. These massive fields of electric cars just sit there rotting. China's green technology initiatives that you keep hearing about are mostly bullshit and a smokescreen to hide the fact that they're doing all sorts of environmental crimes. And remember, it's all about turning a profit. It's not about saving the environment or anything like that. It's a propaganda push and it's a money grab. They want your investment. They'll say, hey, look, invest in China, invest in these green initiatives. You feel good, you go and invest your money. It's being used for wasteful projects like this that really damage the earth. So think twice before investing in China. And if you want to find out more about what's going on in China, I'm talking about up-to-date, down to the wire news, events and everything else in between, come and join me for the China Show on Friday. This is my live show that I do with my business partner Lawa86, where we cover what's new in China, the soft power hour, the Wu Maos, the haters, the everything else. It's fantastic. It's a lot of fun. It's comedic, serious, and everything in between. So I hope to catch you there on Friday. And until next time, you know the drill, as always. Unlike wasteful Chinese EV companies and all this other nonsense, stay awesome.